it's a tough combination, madam. And you also headed the PIB. You had this huge task of creating publicity for a man who was not interested in publicizing himself, his own achievements.
In 2009, when he came back as the prime minister of a much stronger government than in 2004, he was slightly he was a changed person, in the sense that he had the success of the nuclear deal behind him. He had the success of an election, but he was also, I think, a little more aware of what it meant to be a political head. And in one of our first meetings, when I took over the charge of Principal DGPIB, and as you know, that functions as the main official channel for communication and interaction with the media on behalf of the central government. In one of our very first meetings, he said to me, he said, I really like to know what's happening on the ground, because in these positions, one tends to be very insular. And I'm quoting him here. He used this word insular, and he said, we tend to be very insular. Even though he's a person who was very erudite, he would read files, he would read the reports that we sent to him, he would read the feedback. But even then, he says, I would like to know what's happening at the ground level. What is the people's perception? So he realized, I think, that that was a very important factor. But perhaps what happened was, towards the end of his tenure, I think two or three major events collided. One was the 2G, the so-called 2G scam, which ultimately I think the court said there was no scam at all. The second was the coal issue, the allotment of the coal fields. And the third, which I think really was the final thing, which I think completely disheartened him towards the end, was the whole agitation of Anna Hazare and Kejriwal. The government did pass the bill in Parliament, and with an extended session with late night sittings. But the kind of 24 by 7 media coverage that the agitation got, I don't think Dr. Singh really, felt that he could deal with it. And one sense that in a way he had then stepped back, and he had taken a decision that he would no longer be the Congress's candidate for prime ministership for the third term. And he kind of resigned to the fact that whatever he wanted to do or he had to do, he had fulfilled his responsibilities. And he really did not want to say anything more than that.
Madam, did it affect the functioning of the government when you say that he took a step back?
I think every government gets affected if the prime minister is, not a very aggressive PR person. Because even though we had very articulate ministers, both in finance, in home, as well as in other ministries, I think it really matters that when the prime minister speaks, there is a certain gravitas, there is a certain response that people have. Also, the fact that his image personally was unsullied towards the end. There was nobody who could ever point a finger to anything that he did, or any conduct of his interaction with anybody, that could be short of a dignified, honest approach of a man of integrity. So if he had been a little more, I think, forthcoming, a little more outspoken, I'm sure the image that he had that time, or the image that the government had that time, I think would have been different.